My name's Gwenydd Thomas. I was born and bred in Hereford. Though I have a Welsh name, my father was Welsh. I'm a member of the Salvation Army, and this is where we are at the moment in the Salvation Army Citadel in Canonmore Street, opposite the football ground.
Now, are you a football fan?
No, I'm not. I never watch football on the television, but I got carried away in 1972 with the cup fever that, well, was involving the whole city, I think, the whole county. We were all football mad, football crazy. Yes.
Can you describe what the city was like in the run-up to the 1972 match? And can I ask you to maybe start off by saying 1972 and the run-up to the match, blah, 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 because Rick's going to cut my questions out. Is that okay?
Right. Well, in 1972, in the run-up to the iconic match between Hereford United and Newcastle United, because Hereford had been doing so well, people were getting generally excited, and then when they drew against Newcastle, cup fever just took off, and together with a friend at work, we decided we've got to see this match come hell or high water. So we took time off work, we were on flexible working hours, and queued up for tickets, and the queue was very, very long, right down Edgar Street. The draw, which was, I think it was 2-2 draw, which was at Newcastle, took place, and then we weren't sure when the actual replay was going to be because the weather was dreadful. So as soon as the tickets went on sale, we queued up for our tickets. We're very pleased to get them. And then we were patiently waiting for when the match was going to be. It was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. Another friend had queued up for tickets, and she was a knitter. So in about 2 days, she knitted a black and white scarf. I wasn't a knitter, so I bought my scarf and patiently waited for the day that to dawn that the match was going to take place. And I think I remember that it was still a bit dodgy even the day before whether it was going to be on or not. The pitch was like a mud bath, but I think on the day it was a bit mizzly, but it didn't actually rain. But it's a long time ago to remember. I was 23 then, and many moons ago.
So on the day in question, can you just take us from getting up to arriving and the match itself, where you were sat?
Well, we were, on the day, I walked and met my friend at the gate, and we were standing at the meadow end. We got there very early, and obviously all the tickets had been sold, but I think some people must have got in without tickets, and there were people climbing trees and climbing up the pylons where the lights were. Very precarious. I don't think health and safety today would allow that sort of thing to happen. But the atmosphere was fantastic. People screaming and shouting ages before the kick-off. Fantastic atmosphere. The players, because I was at the meadow end, I was seeing a rear view, sometimes front view other times. I didn't wear glasses then, my eyesight was a bit better. But fantastic atmosphere, and I didn't for a minute believe that we would win. I just hoped and prayed that we would. And the first goal, oh, very, very sad. I think McDonald scored first. And then eventually the fantastic Ron Radford goal. Everybody went mad. The pitch was invaded. I didn't invade the pitch. I was about 3 or 4 rows back. Lots of youngsters in front of where I was standing. Pitch invasion, and then the game recommenced, and then we were in extra time. So at that point it was 1-1. I thought, oh, we're not going to win, we're not going to win. Please, Lord, please. So someone up there listened to me. And yeah, so Ricky George scored the winning goal in extra time and another pitch invasion. And then afterwards, my friend and I, we just went to our respective homes, and that was that. No celebration, because I don't drink. Went home to see if we could see anything on the television, and obviously it was televised, and absolutely fantastic. And Ron Radford's goal became the goal of the season, and I don't know whether it was the goal of the decade or the goal of the century after that, but I think it was possibly the goal of the century. Yeah, round about that time, Hereford hopper buses were introduced, and they were lovely yellow and green minibuses, and we were asked to vote for names, sort of iconic names, to be given to these buses. So I remember there was a Ron Radford bus, there was a Gilbert Harding bus as well, and I think there was a Pippin bus that would obviously be to do with Bulmer's cider. I can't remember any of the other names, but I was always pleased when I was getting on the Ron Radford bus. So that was nice. Of course, we've only got Communal Garden buses now. They disappeared, the hopper buses, a long time ago. But
Gwenydd, was there any sort of singing on the day? What sort of songs did people sing?
there was singing, but because I wasn't a football supporter, I didn't know which songs they were, so I didn't join in. But there was a lot of chanting, Hereford, Hereford, and I don't know whether I'm allowed to say something politically incorrect, but I shouted together with everybody, McDonald's a fairy, McDonald's a fairy. And I did so much shouting and screaming that I had a sore throat for several days after. That will teach me to say unkind things about Malcolm MacDonald.
So it's the end of the match. What's the atmosphere like in the stadium?
Fantastic. The pitch invasion for the second time. Absolutely fantastic. And the supporters going away from the match shouting, Hereford, Hereford, we won, we're going to win the cup, and all sorts of things like that. And, you know, fantastic atmosphere.
You were talking before about the players being pin-ups.
Yes, well,
Can you just tell us a little bit
well,
about that?
Colin Addison was quite good looking. He was a bit of an icon as far as the ladies were concerned. We all rather liked him. And there used to be a drama series on television called United. And because the game was on a Sunday and I couldn't go because I was here at church, there was a charity game between the United television team and Hereford United. And I have got that photograph somewhere, but I've got it so safe I can't find it. And the Hereford United players looked equally as dishy as the actors from the television programme United. But yeah, so Dudley Tyler, Colin Addison, Mick McLaughlin, Ricky George. I can't remember any of the other names. The friend who knitted the scarf, her husband is a plumber, and Colin Addison just lived a few streets at that time from them, so they knew him quite well. And because of that, I didn't know him, but I knew, you know, about him, and it was just as though we were one big family, I think, you know. Yeah, so although I went to a few more games after that, I went to the West Ham match. Remember Bobby Moore? His little legs running around in his lovely little white short. Went to a few more games after that, and I thought, no, this isn't for me. The atmosphere wasn't the same. I had no inclination to actually find out exactly the rules of football and to get more interested. So I can't remember the last time I watched a football match on the television.
just wonder, do you think there's anything else you'd like to add about football? Because we've got the Mayfair we'd like to talk to as well about as well.
No, other than the fact that I did go to a few more games, and then at some point, and I can't remember when, Salvation Army Band went and played before one of the games, and just one of the normal games, nothing special, and we were able to collect for our charity. I can remember passing a great big bucket round, and so we got to see the match for free, but it was misty, you couldn't see the other side of the pitch. I've got no idea who Hereford United were playing, no idea at all. And that would probably be the last, that happened twice when the Salvation Army Band played before a match, and that would be the last time I actually saw a live football match. And the last time I watched a match on television, can't remember, long time.
So, can you just tell us some of your memories of the Mayfair? Perhaps you could put it into context. What sort of decade? Maybe how old you were, how much, what you did?
It would be I was born in 1948. From a young age, I would go to the Mayfair every night with a friend, or we would meet up with a few friends. And in those days, a ride was threepence. So on £0.50, you could go on every ride you wanted to go on. The atmosphere was fantastic. So through the late 50s, 60s, the stalls, the sideshows were fantastic, like Sawing the Lady in Half, Sleeping Beauty, The Bearded Lady, very politically incorrect little sideshows you pay to go in. The dancing girls that would always be located in Commercial Road opposite the Baptist Church. That didn't go down very well. And then a bit further down, just past where the Odeon used to be, was a car park, and on that car park there was always a boxing booth, Wall of Death, with the motorcycles whizzing round at precarious speeds, and there was a rotor, which is, if you don't know what a rotor is, it's like this great big tube with a floor that moves up, so you're standing on the floor with your back to the wall that's moving round, and it's getting faster and faster and faster, and then the floor pushes you up, and then the speed holds you in place, so you're pinned to the wall like an insect, and the floor drops down, and you're spinning round at I don't know how many miles an hour. It's stuck to the wall. I used to love that. Couldn't do it now. Used to go on all these exciting rides, but nothing like the rides today where, I don't know, you're paying £5 for a few seconds, and no, it's not the same. So I don't go to the Mayfair at all now. But when I used to go around with my friends, it was just interesting, just observing everybody else enjoying themselves. And for quite a few years, used to buy these little silver balls about the size of a tennis ball, filled with sawdust on a piece of elastic. So we'd all be walking around bouncing these, and then they'd burst and all the sawdust would come out. Yeah, that was good.
You were telling me a funny story just now, earlier on, about, you know, the dancing girls outside the church.
Yes,
hearing snippets of conversation afterwards.
You were supposed to be over 18 to go in to see the dancing girls, and don't know what articles of clothing they were removing, if any, but you'd overhear conversations of people coming out talking about them in their Airtex knickers, and I thought, gosh, what's nice about that? There was always a protest from the church, you know, every Mayfair time, this isn't right, having the dancing girls right opposite. There were some swing boats as well, you know, the old-fashioned swing boats and the dancing girls opposite the church. and the streets used to be heaving with people. You couldn't move, you could walk on people's heads. And the Mayfair used to go all the way up Broad Street, King Street, Hightown, Commercial Street, Commercial Road, and into this car park as well. It covered a lot more of the city than it does today. And yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the bearded lady in the Sleeping Beauty. Did you ever go into any of those?
Oh, I went into the Sleeping Beauty, yeah.
Can you just describe it for us?
Well, she would be in a...
And can you just say, I used to go and see the Sleeping Beauty?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I used to go in and see the Sleeping Beauty sideshow, and she would be in a glass case. And yes, obviously oxygen coming in somewhere, but like in a glass case, like almost like a coffin when you think about it, lying on a sort of satiny bed and very, very still. She was a real person, it wasn't a model, but just you could see her, the fact she was breathing and her chest going up and down, and she'd just be lying there. And I suppose, I assume every so often they'd give her a little break and stop you going in for a few minutes. I don't know, I really don't know. And the bearded lady, I mean, it didn't really look like a real beard, but yeah. Oh, and there was a mouse town as well, with like little tiny houses with little mice running around. I remember that. Flea circus, I remember that. I'm not sure whether there were any fleas, but we just saw things moving about and we assumed that there might be fleas. Yeah. Yeah, the mouse town was there several years in a row, definitely. Some of the stalls and sideshows actually had prizes that were worth winning, not like some of the stalls today where you pay prize every time. You pay £1 and you get something worth £1. But you'd pay about, I can't remember, 6pence for a go. And there was a stall at the end of Broad Street, it was there for years, where there were lovely prizes, and you bought a ticket and it had got a name on, and then in the centre of the stall there was a stand with all the names that were on the tickets, and a light flashed round, and whichever name the light stopped on, if you'd got that name you won the prize. So they obviously waited till they'd sold enough tickets because they knew what income they needed to be able to part with a decent prize. And then you could pick what you wanted off the stall if you won. So that was there for many, many years. I used to just watch in amazement, and I think I might have had a go once, but you're not supposed to gamble in the Salvation Army, you see, so that is a gamble. So you are gaining by somebody else's loss. So I was a bit naughty even having a go. So
someone said to me it was a place to go to hear the latest pop songs and rock and roll. Is that?
Well, there was the on the waltzers and I can't even remember what the ride used to be called, which was a ride with motorbikes and other forms of transport that you sort of sat astride, and it went up and down, and I can't remember what that was called. It was a Grand National, so I'm not sure what it was called, but with lots of, yeah, the latest pop music blaring, and on the waltzers, yes, and the Dodgem cars. Yeah, well, it's the same today, except the pop songs of today they're not really songs, are they? They're just noises. They're not. It's not proper music, is it? I don't think so.
So was it a place to go? Was it the place to be seen? Was it a place to? I remember when I was a teenager, you know, people would go to the waltzers and try and impress the boys. You know. I
think there was an element of wanting to get off with one of the people that worked on the rides. I mean, I'm just thinking about when I was at secondary school, and some of the girls would go, you know, get themselves all dressed up and go to the fair. But yeah, possibly, yes.
I'm just going back to the picture in the book now about Hereford Beach.
Yes.
Can you tell me what your memories are of Hereford Beach? Could you maybe place it for those who don't know where it is?
Well, it's now, if you go...
Could you say Hereford Beach?
Oh, Hereford Beach.
Sorry, one more time, because Marcia's
I was talking over you there.
Yeah. Hereford Beach, I mean, it's not so much a beach now. I don't quite know what they've done down by the river, but if you walked over the Victoria Bridge from the Castle Green side, it would be immediately to your left, and it was in the summer when the river was low. It was a pebbly beach area, and it was heaving with families with young children taking a picnic, sitting on a blanket, children paddling, and sometimes the river was that low you could actually walk across from one side to the other. And there weren't so many weeds there as there are now. And I don't think I've seen Hereford Beach for a long time, even when the river's low. It just doesn't seem to be there anymore. Just a very, very small area, not like it used to be. But, and we seem to have long, hot summers. All my school holidays, it seemed to be one sunny day after another. So I don't know whether that's, in fact, you know, I've got this vision of it always being nice weather in the school holidays, but it did seem to be very often.
You were talking to me before, really lovely image of, you know, being a child in those days, going off all day on your bikes, you know, was it to Wormsey? Could you just paint that picture of childhood?
When I was young, my little gang, it was just my friends in the street. We were nearly all girls. We used to play boys' games, cowboys and Indians. We'd go off for the day on our bikes. Didn't have watches. We'd go off with a little packet of sandwiches and a drink. We could be away all day and nobody would worry about us. We'd get back when we were hungry. The furthest we cycled was to Wormsley golf course, because there were always lovely daffodils there, and we'd pick them and bring them back. We shouldn't have done that, I suppose, but we did. And it was quite hilly. It was easier coming back than going, but we'd be there all day. We'd cycle we'd cycle up Ayleston Hill and all the way down the other side till we got to the river, and we'd paddle and swim in the river there. Nobody bothered about us. We'd go for walks where River Lug is before there were so many houses built. We'd go for walks and we'd collect frog spawn. Some of the building sites in Hereford, when the houses were being built along White Cross Road between Ranley Street and the monument on the right-hand side, that was a field with cows in, and there were also some allotments. So when those houses were being built, and also the houses up Wordsworth Road, along the green lanes, we'd go and play on the building sites. We'd create a little den. We'd make seesaws out of planks of wood. Weren't bothered that anybody would tell us, well, nobody told us off, nobody did. We'd just go and play, and it was a paradise for children. We play in the street. I live in a cul-de-sac. There was hardly any traffic, so we play in the street till late at night. It was just idyllic, and I can't imagine what it's like to be a parent today, worrying about your kids, because you just weren't. Obviously, bad things must have happened, but I wasn't aware of them, and it was just fantastic. I wish I could go back, be a kid again. And I loved school. I actually adored being at school. I broke my heart when I left school. I cried and cried and cried. I can't imagine anybody doing that today.
Just that image of, you know, going up to the monument, sitting there waiting for traffic, and then
Yeah.
When you're ready.
Yeah. When I would be about, I don't know, 4 or 5 possibly, my grandmother used to take me for a little walk up White Cross Road, and there was a seat by the monument, and we used to just sit and watch the world go by, and the odd car, and it would be the odd car. And my grandfather died unexpectedly. He was the driver. and my mother got a driving licence, and because she bought one before a certain date, she didn't have to pass a test. And I can remember sitting with my grandmother, and suddenly my mother came along in our car, and that was quite exciting. So I thought, oh, great. So that road was so quiet, it was unbelievable. Very few people had cars. Very few people had televisions.
We could go from a very few people had televisions.
Very few people had televisions. I can remember, I'm not saying we were the only people in my street to have a television, but my friends in the street didn't have a television. And I can remember getting excited because there was only BBC when we first got our television. Got very excited. There was a programme about chimpanzees, and I went running across to my friend over the road. Yeah, very, very few people had televisions, and there was a programme on about chimpanzees. So I was told to dash across the road to my friends and say, there's a programme about chimpanzees, would you like to come over and watch it? So the kids came over and we watched that, getting really excited about something like that. But yeah, so quite a few people got televisions in time for the coronation. And again, I can remember a few neighbours coming in to watch on our television. But yeah.
What about telephones? How did you keep in touch with people?
We had a telephone. I can't remember not having a telephone. The old Bakelite, yeah. And we had a business in town. We had Westwood's Fish Cafe, which was in Ine Street, which had two-way traffic, would you believe? You imagine now Ine Gate with two-way traffic. It's unbelievable, but it was always very, very busy. The shops used to stay open quite late as well, I seem to remember. Yeah, so 2 phone numbers to remember, the home phone number and the business one. And for years I remembered them, and I can remember our home number still, but 2790 that was. Hereford 2790.
Yeah, it'd be lovely if you could just paint that picture of school days for us.
Right, well, I went to St Michael's School, which was originally in Broomy Hill, and because it was going to be relocated to the end of Ingestry Street, which was just around the corner from Ranley Street, where I lived and still live. I've only ever lived in that one house. My parents sent me to St Michael's School, and it was a wonderful school. I loved it. I loved the kids. I loved the teachers. And it broke my heart when I left. I cried and cried and cried. After St Michael's School, I passed 11 plus and went to Lady Hawkins at Kington, which I loved. And it was in the days when the teachers all wore caps and gowns. Quite large classes, A and B stream. But then we merged with the comprehensive school there, and it became a bilateral school, which meant that you had an A and a B and a C and a D stream, which the grammar school kids never moved down, but the C and D stream kids had a chance to move up. And it was the first bilateral school in the country, I seem to remember. And we had a new building, but we continued to use the old schoolhouse, and also Hergis Croft, which is now Hergis Croft Gardens. So every day, some of my lessons were at Hergis Croft, so we'd walk up the hill, have a couple of lessons, then walk back down again. We weren't allowed to wander around the gardens, unfortunately, at Hergis Croft, so it was only after I left school that I actually paid to go and have a look around the gardens and visit the little tea room, which used to be one of my classrooms. So, yeah, so it was a fantastic school to go to. So both my junior school and my secondary school years were lovely. Then I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school. I ended up becoming a civil servant in the Ministry of Defence, which I absolutely adored. So I'm lucky, aren't I? When I was at St Michael's School, I shared a desk with Susan Brownbridge, who was a daughter of the Brownbridge family. They had an electrical store in Hereford. Diana Brownbridge, otherwise known as Diana Day, was a child actress. She was in some of the films of the day, and I'm not aware what they were apart from some of the St Trinian's films. And she was also on the Jimmy Clitheroe show on the radio. When she wasn't filming, she would actually come to school some days. She didn't have to wear uniform. Our uniform was green blouses and brown gym slips. But I always remember she had a beautiful knitted Aran cardigan with lovely different coloured bobbles on. Very, very unusual. Probably cost an arm and a leg. That's what she seemed to wear when she used to come to school. So she attended school sometimes. And then I used to get invited to parties at the Brownbridge house. That was interesting. To meet up with Diana. I don't think she remembered me. When I talked to her, she used to run Dee Dee's gift shop, which was part of the Left Bank complex. And I went in one day and said, "You probably don't remember me, but I did sometimes visit your home, and I knew you when you were at school." But that was a few years ago, a few years ago when the Left Bank closed. So I don't know where she is now.